Well, from that business news summary, we move on now to give you a flick through the French papers, which are hot off the press here in Paris this Thursday morning. And Alison Sargent is here to talk us through the headlines. And Alison, papers here in France are still concerned about the future of the cyclist Chris Froome after reports surfaced that he had an abnormal drug test.
Right, Thomas. Froome is a four-time Tour de France winner, which makes him a household name here in France and in many places around the world. Sports paper L'Équipe says on their front page today, "Le ciel tombe sur Froome." The sky is falling on Froome. Now, this drug test showed his urine had double the legal levels of a drug used for treating asthma when he won the Vuelta a España back in September. He could be stripped of his title and be banned from the sport. Froome, though, says he was just following the advice of his doctor. Now, how believable is that really? Well, L'Équipe talked to the scientific advisor to France's anti-doping agency. They were pretty careful about drawing any conclusions, although he did say that there are factors that could have affected how Froome's body processed the drug that led to such a high concentration. But he says ultimately, when you look at the levels that Froome had, he says, well, ça fait quand même beaucoup. That really is quite a lot.
And it's certainly, of course, not the first time that cycling has seen a drug scandal. And some French papers are drawing comparisons between Chris Froome and other famous Tour de France winners.
Right. Could Chris Froome see his downfall just like Lance Armstrong? That's what Le Figaro is wondering today. They answer their own question, actually, in this article. They say probably not. Armstrong was a particularly sensational case. He eventually admitted to using performance-enhancing drugs and lost everything. Le Figaro says the case of Froome is actually much closer to that of a Spanish cyclist, Alberto Contador, who once tested positive for a drug he said came from a contaminated steak. He was banned for 2 years, but ultimately maintained his reputation among fans.
Well, Britain's star cyclist makes headlines here in the French papers. Those papers are also talking about Britain's future in the EU.
Right, Brexit will be high on the agenda as EU leaders meet today and tomorrow in Brussels. This summit comes a day after MPs dealt May a big setback just last night by adopting an amendment to the withdrawal bill that guarantees Parliament the right to vote on the final deal. Le Monde reports that May now has her hands tied more than ever before, and they're worried that this is going to be a difficult couple of days for her.
Now, Alison, while the British Prime Minister Theresa May continues to assure European citizens that they will remain welcome to live and to work in the United Kingdom after Brexit, the French paper Le Figaro is reporting that many EU citizens in the UK haven't quite felt that way.
Yeah, Le Figaro reports that there's been somewhat of an anti-immigration crackdown in the EU, in the UK, and that more and more EU citizens are being thrown out of the country. They say this year saw a record 15 Europeans a day kicked out of the UK. That's 13% more than this time last year, 340% more than in 2010. Well, 2010 was actually the year Theresa May became Home Secretary in the UK, and Le Figaro says, that's not a coincidence. The paper says May actually has a deliberate strategy of creating a hostile environment for immigrants so that they ultimately choose to leave the country themselves.
Now, Alison, France is also hoping to win back its French nationals that are now looking to move home in the aftermath of Brexit, or at least those that have some cash in their pockets.
Exactly. France wants to win back its citizens, but especially its bankers. Okay, that's according to business paper Les Echos. They're lowering charges for French citizens who choose to come back to France, making it financially more attractive for them. France is hoping to get 2,000 jobs back to France from the UK, according to Les Echos, and half of those jobs will be in French banks.
OK, let's move on now to some other news in the French press. And the right's newest strongman has given his interview to Le Parisien.
Right, this is Laurent Wauquiez. He's still glowing after his election win this weekend. He is now the head of the Les Républicains right-wing party. His election actually marked a shift very much to the right for that party. He's on Le Parisien's front page today saying, he's not here to please anyone, so rather defiant. Le Parisien isn't convinced, though, by Wauquiez's brand of liberal populism, which they say is the same, liberal populism that led to the rise of Donald Trump. And they say Wauquiez is playing with fire and hoping to build on the ruins of the National Front.
Alison, you have one final story from the French press this hour, and that's that Paris has promised to ban wild animals from its circuses.
It hasn't exactly happened yet officially, but Huffington Post is reporting that Paris is taking steps to ban wild animals from circuses within the city. This comes after a tiger escaped from a circus a few weeks ago here in Paris. You might remember it. That tiger had to be shot, which sparked a lot of online outrage. People were pretty upset by that. Well, this has led, it seems, to have Paris take some steps towards, solving that problem. And if this ban goes through, it will mean at least that that tiger did not die in vain.
Indeed. Alison Sargent with the French press review this hour. Thank you very much. Well, that's all from us for now. Do stay with us here on France 24. I'm back with more world news and headlines after this very short break. Do stay tuned.